Morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 16th Economic Development Authority meeting. We have a rather extensive agenda, as you have already noticed. And we're going to try to move through this as quickly as we can, but we'll make sure that we have enough time for adequate discussion. Pretty excited. We just completed the first quarter. Really excited about some of the things that I think we'll be able to do this year. I think we have a chance to really establish some things in the innovation district that will have a long range implication for the city. So I look forward to those discussions over the next couple of months. And given that, Brian, you want to do the roll call?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Sandra Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith is absent. Mr. James.
Here.
Here we do have a quorum.
Okay. Before we move for adoption of the minutes, I just want to let everybody know that Ms. Boone has resigned from the board. And we certainly appreciate the contribution she made while she was with us. And we will be speaking with Ms. White to begin the replacement process. Given that, if there are no questions in regards to the March 19th meeting, move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Sandra Smith.
Yes.
And Mr. James.
Yes.
Here, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
All right, this time Ms. Pope will go over the financial report.
So I'll do it, so if you don't mind. Good morning. Finance team is here to present the financials for the third quarter fiscal year 2024. What you have in front of you is the balance sheet report, which shows the wealth of EDA. And these data are comprehensive, cumulative since the inception. So the total asset for EDA so far is 24.4 million. And there is no much compared to the fiscal year 2023, there is no much activity, only that 435,000 increase in properties, which corresponds to the cash respectively. And it is related to purchasing, EDA purchasing two properties located, I believe, Greenwood and Country Street. If you go down there, total, what's important for EDA is the net position. Total net position for EDA is 21.8 million and unrestricted are $20 million. The next page, it is income statement. This is this year only. That means the activity just this year, the second column and the first column is fiscal year 2023. And the bottom line, you go all the way to the end for this year. Net position at the end of the period is 21.8 million, as I mentioned, the first page. The next page, it is a year-to-date budget report, and it shows the revenues on top and expenses, and bottom line is that grand total is expenses in excess to revenues, $265,000. And the most can you go a bit up? So if you see in this page, most of the expenses for EDA are in contractuals and grants. Next page, please. This is the profit that 108,000 was the gain from selling the 3115 Airline Boulevard property. And the next page, it lists all the properties that EDA has on hand, ready to be sold, and the total should be 13.2 million. And this is the page where it shows the grants, and the grants to be paid. It is it's a bit small, but this is liability. Grants to be paid to others, 165,000. It's always that amount was small. If you zoom a bit, yeah, $165,000. That's it. And the next page, So these are grants paid so far. It's that's why I mentioned at first, initially, that most of the activity for EDA, most of the expenses were on grants. They paid so far 220,000 grants, and they're listed per names, and Brian might know better on this. And the next page, is there any? Oh, that's the budget. So Brian will present the budget. If you have any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions, we'll move on to the next.
Great, and your next item is the proposed FY 2025 operating budget, which is on the screen. You also have a copy in front of you at the table. There was one minor modification, and that was line 6 of your budget under your operating revenues to reflect the $125,000 in lease income associated with the Renaissance Hotels payment for the ground lease. That was increased, I think. Previous year, we reflected that differently. So we have updated that. I don't believe we've had any other modifications since the budget was presented at your March meeting, but certainly open for discussion. Your treasurer, Mrs. Saunders Smith, is here representing the budget committee. Additional.
No, just.
Commissioner Smith, did we do anything for training or travel?
Yeah, I do. It's line 29. And we, increased that to 30,000.
Okay, I see. Budget.
Second.
A motion, a second to adopt the FY 25 EDA operating budget. During discussion. There are none. I'll read the roll. Mr. Barber. Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
That's Mr. James.
Yes.
Here, the item is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Next up is our minority participation discussion, and I'd like to say that I appreciate Ms. Grant Williams coming. She has a lot on her plate, and I appreciate her taking time to help us better understand what we need to be doing to address this issue going forward.
Very well. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I won't take too long on this subject. We delved through it in great detail the last time, talking about the importance of minority participation being based on our disparity study. That study has been released in final form. I encourage you all to read it. It's about 128 fun-filled pages of facts that I think it's really well done. There is a lot of data in it. Most of it is broken down in very manageable bites, but the findings in it really relate very closely to the city's needs. I think you'll find that that report details things that are very specific to Portsmouth, its economic development potential. And so I think it's actually quite a good read on, especially for the commissioners, to get an idea on how to shape their policies moving forward. Today, I'm just going to briefly talk about how you can use it as a guiding compass for improving minority participation in the city. The reason the disparity study is so important is because it provides the data that's necessary to support minority and women-owned based initiatives by a city. On its face, those types of initiatives are unconstitutional unless there is the need for them, and the data provides that need. The need doesn't just stop there with the data. It has to be narrowly tailored to the interest. And that's what's outlined in the disparity study. One of the things that the disparity study for our city did was identify that there are disparities across the board in all categories. And so we have a big job to do as a city and as this commission to develop programming that will help rectify that. It was consistently low in 2015 in the initial disparity study, and it didn't get much better in 2023. One of the things that they continue to suggest in that disparity study is that we continue to collect the data. So as you all are putting out programming and talking about the type of businesses that you want to see here in the city, make note of those, the participants that are in there, the parties that you actually select to take part in some of these programmings. Data collection is very key, and that report will give you the exact types of data for the types of procurement and contracting and grant programming that you have. So take a look at that data collection and analysis. One of the other big things that I think is important for this commission is that it recommends, working on identifying barriers for these businesses and how to remedy those barriers. Some of the recommendations included collaborative partnerships, forging partnerships with these minority business advocacy groups, chambers of commerce, educational institutions, and other stakeholders to look at how these entities are already impacting how to further develop minority business enterprises in the city. That way you're not duplicating efforts. You're already working on approved programming, and you can also look to other organizational plans that have survived judicial review. One of those plans that we pulled for you today, and I'll pass it out and you can read it at your leisure, is Richmond developed a minority business agreement with its city partners. So if you could just take it and pass that from the jar. This is an example. We don't have the entire report, but I think the most relevant parts of it are here in this document. And it talks about how the city can utilize performance targets and community undertakings, and they put it all together to address approaches on developing systems by which the city can better approach the minority business enterprise efforts. It's a lot here. It's detailed, but it gives you an example of something that you all could use as you're fostering your programming moving forward. Thank you. Some of the things I wanted to actually point out from the report. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Thanks. Yes. Anybody else need want to have an extra? Okay, sure. Some of the other things that I think are really important for economic development that was pointed out in the report was this concept of capacity building. And I think this commission does some of that in its programming. It essentially is when you invest in capacity building programs that enhance the competitiveness of these minority women business-owned enterprises. You do that by providing access to training, technical assistance, and mentorship opportunities. I think this commission has done a really good job in putting forth some of that programming. It can become more robust by using the findings in the disparity study to identify very specific groups that are available for the market that we have, particularly the maritime market. There are other emerging markets with the development that we're looking to bring to the community here. On the waterfront development and other, the innovation district, which I think is going to be very heavy health and wellness, as well as housing. And so we can develop more programming that will increase the number of minority and women business-owned enterprises that can participate in these opportunities. We will be fulfilling our disparity study and bringing those numbers down or up that we want to see improved. The other part of it is really just enhancing our outreach and engagement. I think a lot of what was in that report talks about strengthening our efforts to raise awareness among these minority and women business-owned enterprises about opportunities that are available. To provide the support services and resources to meet some of these businesses where they are, and foster these, again, collaborative partnerships with advocacy groups that help promote these types of businesses across the region and specifically in this area. I went and looked through some of the other cities that are similar in size, like Petersburg. Richmond really isn't similar in size, but it's close in proximity. And we're able to pull out some of these programs. You have that agreement that they have with their economic development and city partners. But there were also efforts in these communities to create programming with the city to put forth they called it a small business enterprise program. We hear about that a lot on the state level, but I think on the local level, this particular disparity study recommended that the city of Portsmouth consider establishing such a program. That program would have the advantage that they are generally not subject to constitutional challenges. There's so many that have been developed across the region that they've been able to survive judicial scrutiny. So developing one is one of the safest bets in which we can have things that are race and gender conscious and still be able to survive that scrutiny, which is important for our department specifically.
What did you call that again?
This is called a small business enterprise program.
What does that consist of?
So the small business enterprise programs are programs that take the needs of your disparity study as they relate to the small businesses that are able to be developed in your area. So let's say, for example, using the data that they have, you may have a large amount of service providers that you can utilize, that you're underutilizing. You can then create programming specific to those entities through this small business enterprise program. And they have, there's a description of it in more detail in Appendix I in the actual disparity study. And it gives very detailed steps and approaches that you can use that have been vetted and survived the test of time in that appendix. I didn't bring that part of it with me. I can actually try to look it up here shortly and answer that question at the conclusion of the presentation.
Small business grant program relate to that?
I think it's part and parcel of that, but I think also you can more narrowly tailor them to those businesses that the disparity study has identified as being underutilized. And so I think where you normally would have it being gender and race neutral, right? You're looking at more of a purpose and goal driven type grant program. You can now say we want specific gender and race-based businesses specific to our disparity study. The types of businesses identified by the disparity study, you can now tailor those more direct to those entities.
So I guess I'm vaguely familiar with that.
Okay.
I guess what you're saying is that using the disparity study,
Yes.
it can reflect where there's an underrepresented targeted business category.
Exactly.
We will be able to, if we do this, we will be able to target that occupation or that market, and we could give special consideration to them.
That's exactly right.
To give them some incentives to enter into that market.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
You can go into the spaces where they primarily serve. You can limit its reach to those very specific businesses where normally that would be something that wouldn't survive scrutiny and you would not be allowed to do it. Now, I will say this. The courts have been more and more stringent on these types of programs outside of the strictures of a small business enterprise program that's already been vetted. Right. And so that's why it's very important to try and tailor it as narrowly as possible to the programs that have already been established and for those businesses that are identified in our specific disparity study.
Can you provide us a list of the NAICS codes that are associated with those business categories?
I can definitely look that up
That
and
would
see if
be-
we can get that.
Would, would the program be targeted geographically just to, Portsmouth? In
Our
Portsmouth?
study
or-
does specifically, uh, base their findings on the city of Portsmouth. And so,
So companies that would be, follow-up question.
Yeah.
So companies that would qualify to participate in this would have to have a physical location within the city of Portsmouth? Or-
that would be the preference if you're narrowly tailoring it, which is why developing more businesses to be able to participate goes hand in hand with some of these recommendations, because it is limited.
One last question,
Let
Dutch.
me, let me finish this up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. But there are opportunities within SBE programs where you can broaden that region if they're coming to provide services
Okay.
or resources to the city. So there needs to be a connection to the city. But the preference is obviously being based here. And then it can move out from there depending on what your findings are in that
That was my
disparity
follow-up
study. Yes,
question. Thank
yes,
you.
yeah. And I will say, you all would benefit by having MGT come here and talk to you specifically about their findings of the disparity study. They're going to have an intricacy of knowledge on some of these things that legal, doesn't fall into my purview of the legal perspective, which is to make sure you have the data that is narrowly tailored and you want to follow programs that have been vetted. In terms of the content and style and mechanisms of that, that's much more appropriate for MGT to present. They did do a presentation to the city. These types of questions weren't asked, but I think that can inform your questions a little bit more. I'm just not the expert in the disparity study. I just use it as a basis to protect the programming that you all would develop.
Can we put them on the agenda for future visits?
And I think they'll be able to walk you through the steps of
That would be
that.
great.
Very, very, much more detail than my
That'd be
lawyer
great.
mind can do. But I will point out that it is an appendix I of that report, and I can make sure you all have an email of that sent around to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Let's see here. I guess the last thing that I would say along those lines in terms of what this report has provided for us that would be helpful in establishing through the commission is intentional and targeted efforts to increase the small, local, minority, and women business inclusion in city procurement, as well as those identified in the disparity report as needing help with outreach and reporting compliance. They are saying that this can be done by establishing a business inclusion office. I know this city is working on having a minority business participation department or some such name. And that could be a partner with the commission's efforts to do something similar. That was one of the other recommendations in the disparity study specific for Portsmouth, which would help us be able to narrowly tailor those offices' efforts to minority and women-owned businesses. It didn't say a lot about veterans, and I think veterans is a unique, because I can feel the admiral behind me here. I think veterans is inclusive in this, in that they can be minorities and they can be women. They do carry a unique need in this area because we do have a heavy concentration of vets. I think this disparity study does not address that. That's a conversation you probably have had or want to have with MGT on that, why that is. But I do think some of the principal ideas of addressing the need for minorities and women who are also veterans still applies. And so I think there's some application here that could work for programming in the veteran space that would survive scrutiny. I don't know if that's the answer. I just don't know if they're a protected class as the others are.
Did the legislation pass that was sponsored by Senator Rouse for a veteran
I'm not sure of that. I don't know the answer to that.
I
I
don't
could
know
look
if that
that up.
passed out.
I don't recall it. I think it would have had a lot of pomp and circumstance.
Because he introduced a bill that would do, it was a little bit of an overlapping, similar to enterprise zones for veteran
Yeah,
zone.
yeah, I have not heard about that, but I'll look into it and report back to you.
We give them the consideration to, service disabled veterans own small business, because they're kind of a minority in their self being disabled veterans.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't, and that is a protected class. It is not specifically addressed in this disparity study. And that could be that it wasn't asked for. I know it was a build off of the prior disparity study, which also did not include it. And so there may be something we can look at as a city moving forward
Right.
to include that protected class for sure. I think if we're looking from a legal perspective as what's the point of what I've just discussed? The point of what I've just discussed is that there is room in our abilities to directly address those businesses that we want to increase participation in that are underrepresented or underserved in our community. They've been identified in the report. There is data to support it in the report. The report does also say that we lack the ability to broaden that because we haven't done very good data collection. And what that means is very different for each division that they're looking at. So I think data collection, spending some time to talk about what that looks like for the commission and for development as we're moving forward is a good start. But I think we have foundationally the pieces that we need to start to really narrowly tailor some of our programming, which I think if you look at the report, it has commendations and recommendations. Some of the commendations is you guys are doing a lot of this already on a broader scale. Now here you have the data to say you can really hone in on those businesses that you want to see more of. And I think we have that. We have examples of how to formulate policy based on that. And what we can do is report back to you all other examples of SVEs, a participation agreement similar to the piece we pulled out of the Richmond agreement, and bring back some other examples in cities that are comparable in size of some of the capacity building programming that they've done, particularly port cities. And bring some examples that you all can look at as a commission moving forward. And so we will do that. That is the will of this commission. And that's the conclusion of my report. Anybody have any other questions?
One of the questions that I'm struggling with is, and I know it's probably in data collected, but if I am a developer and I have a number of contractors that I need for the development, electricians, brick masons. If I list all those contractors, how am I able to determine how much of that need can be met by businesses in Portsmouth? And what is the shortfall? Because often people will say, well, you need to have minorities involved in big developments. And we say, we'd love to have that, but sometimes we don't have the people that they need. Now that's something we can work on, obviously, and expand. But where do we find our shortcomings currently? Is that data captured anywhere?
The report does address that. And what they do is they have a number of methodologies that they use, but one of them is the cost of the project itself. And then you break out what you've paid to those minority entities from the cost of that project. And then the disparity between that sort of represents a number that they plug into a formula that will kind of give you that answer. And she does a really good job of breaking that down into contracting versus procurement versus service industry versus all these other types. It's a different formula for each type of business enterprise. But I think most important is that you are recording or providing that data to whatever entity that's tracking it of your contractors, your subcontractors, and the dollars spent, so that they can continue to adjust that formula to appropriately find out how large the disparity is, how you can rectify it in whatever project that you're working on. But, you know, I think a delve into that disparity study methodology will help answer that question. And that's another thing that when she comes back to talk to you all, that you can, you know, walk through with her on how that can be better used for solving the problem that you presented in your question.
Often in some of the city council meetings, and I don't want to get into a political discussion here, but sometimes the question is, bring a minority participation report back to me that shows, I'm not quite sure what they're looking for. And if
Right.
anybody could help us with that understanding so we can present the information that they're looking for, is it the number of minority vendors?
I think, just to elaborate on it.
Yeah.
We have fairly good data about the grant program that we provide,
Mhm.
and we can provide that. But when we have a property that we're selling to a developer, we have really no control or influence of that development. And really, there's limited ability to get information related to the development, because oftentimes it's way in the future.
Mhm. I think you two hit the nail on the head. I think the type of data is going to depend on the type of project, right? And you know, I can't speak to specifically to what exactly the question is asking for, but I can tell you that oftentimes economic development is looked at as the overarching entity that encompasses procurement and all those various things that are in the disparity study. I think for the commission, it would be helpful to sort of parse out what it is, breaking down what you just explained, that when it's a buy-sell scenario, there's very limited control you have over who participated and who doesn't. But if it's who provides the water for the meeting, that's a different type of data. And so I think somehow educating the public on what role this authority plays in those things that are identified in the disparity study would be a good teaching lesson for our council, so that when we're asking for information, we know exactly where we're supposed to be getting it from. So I think it's an opportunity to sort of teach each other on what you do, and then what it is that we can get from you as a council.
I have a question. I can certainly see how this study would be like to the smaller businesses when we're trying to target this population. But when it comes to larger projects of procurement, and are there any incentives through this program that would allow majorities to seek out and partner with minorities?
That's an excellent question. One of the things that I did not discuss in here, because I think we were focusing more on the small businesses, was this need for an audit clause in all of our contracts. And I think these audit clauses are ones where we are saying this city's committed to ensuring that minority businesses participate in some of these larger contracts as subcontractors or in whatever capacity, partners, however the project sees best fit. It is those requirements, those aspirational goal settings that they talk about in there, that you would try to require these larger contractors to use as part and parcel of their business transactions with the city. So by requiring that they meet these aspirational goals, or providing some sort of teeth behind these aspirational goals, I think that's another thing that comes up a lot in these discussions is how effective is it if there's no consequence, if there's nothing that they lose at the end of the day for not participating. Coming up with that balance for the larger contractors or suppliers is really I think the primary way that this study has shown to be effective. So continuing to have, and I think does the Richmond agreement have something similar to that in it? Jeff, I can't recall.
To some extent.
Okay.
To some extent. They definitely, Richmond's very focused on process and very focused on data.
Sure. Okay. But I think that's really it, just making, almost recommitting them to fulfilling some of these goals that the city has in terms of using it, incorporating that in the contract with some of these larger developers or
So,
providers. Yes.
so I guess just thinking out loud, following up on the previous question.
Yeah.
Does this give us the teeth that you could do a request for proposal, for example,
Okay.
and give a developer, which I don't know, being a new person on the board,
Yeah.
you can give developers points for
Sure.
minority participation,
Sure.
and doesn't it provides a little bit more teeth to just saying an aspirational goal and best efforts, because based on my experience, best efforts
Right.
are best efforts.
Right. Right.
And you end up having a large project with very limited minority participation
Right. In the end.
in
Ultimately.
the end.
Right.
So
Right.
is that, or maybe they can come in when they come in and make a presentation to us.
Yeah.
They can give us some recommendations on how some communities
That's exactly
have
right.
put a little bit of teeth into it,
Yeah.
so that a developer would have to be able to show what that minority participation is.
Right.
And I would like to also see if they have examples of how, if the disparity study shows that there's a gap in certain professional, how have communities grown or attracted to develop that gap?
Mhm,
For
mhm.
example, if there are no architects,
Right.
architectural firms that have the ability to do what we want them to do,
Right.
how has economic development authorities reached in and helped to grow that partnership with Norfolk State or
Right. That's exactly it.
universities, so that 5 years from now, we don't see that?
Right. That's the capacity building that they were suggesting, and these partnerships with those advocacy groups that are already focused on some of these areas that are shortcomings.
Okay.
I have two things real quick.
Yeah.
To touch on what you said, I've talked to someone from a major developer that's popular in this area, and the conversation was, how do you feel about having to include minority participation on some of your contracts? And his response was, I have no problem including minorities, but I can't find them in
Mhm.
Portsmouth. The businesses that I need aren't in Portsmouth. And when I do find a business that I need in Portsmouth, they don't have the resources, the startup capital, or whatever they need to be able to participate in the contract. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think an ideal time to gather more data is during the business licensing or renewal process. Once we identify what data we want to collect, we can have it as part of maybe a survey or the licensing application process or renewal process, so we could then begin to gather that data and collect it and store it somewhere for future analysis.
Yeah. I think if you guys really take the time and as a group pour through this disparity study, like I said, it's like 120 pages, but most of it is graphs or charts. There's some real nuggets. Each of you are touching on things that are fleshed out in great detail in there. How do you get the big guys to include the little guys, and where does that fall in your role as commissioners? How do you capacity build? What do you do when there's most of your work is going to come outside in? Does that count? They're bringing in a benefit to the city.
Right.
That stuff is really fleshed out in great detail in this disparity study, in terms of where the shortfalls are, which is what you were describing, Chairman, but also what is out there and available that other cities have been able to do to backfill that, and to improve that. And I think, having them come and sort of walk you through that would be more informing on some of the things that you guys are talking about and connecting the dots on it.
Just as this could leverage, just as a comment, Anthony pointed there, I think it was the last meeting we discussed about trying to have some data on our website and trying to do exactly what Anthony was saying, is trying to go through the licensure as well as data that we can collect, and then having a separate page on our website with minority businesses, so that as we have opportunities come before us, we can say, okay, here's at least, we're not recommending them, but here's a list of contractors, firms, et cetera, that are minorities that might be suitable for your project. The other discussion we will have later today in terms of relative to capacity is how we might be able to engage the Small Business Development Center on a more regular basis to assist in our minority businesses and businesses generally here in the city, so that they can be more able to participate. And a sort of a third one is that I think, again, as part of today's meeting is, I think LISC is now planning, and which I found out from Brian last week, is that a training program for minority developers. And then so that they would have the ability to participate more actively in the development of the city.
That's correct.
And we have provided some incentives, but it's mostly been a discount on the cost of the land. But we could drill down even further than that, cost of the land, if you partner with more minority business. But the other issue here is capital. We've been talking a little bit about that.
That's the main issue. What kind of training could we offer minority businesses? Minority contractors, what kind of training can we offer them?
I'm glad you asked.
It's gonna be. The next item on your agenda this morning is gonna touch.
That's great. Good
directly
segue.
on that.
But before we do that, I did just stumble upon something that I was trying to think of when I was trying to answer Commissioner Smith's question about how to address some of the larger contracts. And one of the things that's recommended in the disparity study, Commissioner, is unbundling contracts. I had to look into that because it did make sense to me. But instead of bidding out a very large contract, breaking it down into smaller contracts and giving more opportunities for the small guys to participate in some of these pieces instead of relying on the large guys to fill it.
Go and find it.
It's a great option, particularly in a development heavy city like ours. That's a great idea. And that's, again, very specific to Portsmouth. And that's why I think really walking through this thing, you'll find some little nuggets that I think will be very helpful. So,
Now that
yes.
Norfolk does that, but you should be aware that you will get pushback. We will get pushback because developers they want to bungle it. all
Sure,
in
yeah,
one.
it makes it more.
And they will talk about cost savings
Yeah, right.
if you do it. So we need to make sure that we can defend the unbundling costs to the
Right.
public.
Right. And that's about priority. You have to establish a priority
So
before.
it sounds great, but
Right.
when we go on the waterfront project, for example.
Yeah.
A developer will come in and say, I can do it all for this X amount.
Yeah.
And if we suggest that we unbundle it, it's going to be a different cost.
We got that though. We direct that in the RFPs and what we send out. So we direct that. We don't let the developer direct it.
That's why I think that that's a great idea. We want to make sure that we mention that on the original RFP.
Right.
Yeah.
And not have to backtrack it. If you make it clear to the developers who are willing to do the RFP, that this is our approach,
right.
This is what we're going to do,
right.
And make it crystal clear, you avoid getting that back conversation that sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Yes. Go back to my capital question. I mean, just a comment. I believe there's an opportunity for us to leverage maybe some of the financial institutions that we're depositing money in, the city and the EDA to collectively come up with, for example, $1 million in capital that we provide to small businesses that are on the threshold of being bigger, but just don't have the capital resources to get there. They would be vetted. But I think in the city of Portsmouth, we can't always rely on someone else to do something for us. I think we have to do something for ourselves. And I think if we put a little pressure on those three areas, I think we could come up with a sizable fund that we might be able to leverage for small businesses going forward.
One of the sections in the disparity studies in 6.5, it talks about access to credit and capital. And it talks about bundling your resources in terms of credit unions and things of that nature, and working on programming with those that are already with those entities that are already established. So it's, I mean, you're sort of forecasting right down the line of some of the ideas that are in this report. So I take a look at that also in your development. But that concludes the legal aspect of it. From our perspective, we are here obviously to provide any sort of compliance review, recommend any policies that we know that have worked regionally for the city. If you have any questions on specific data that we can provide, just let us know. And we're here to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to Attorney Graham Williams and Deputy City Attorney Miller for the briefing and information. I think there's a lot to digest, and I think we had a lot of takeaways for some future meetings, and we're going to work to have the MGT attend a future meeting to present, do maybe a deeper dive into some of the data and results of the disparity study. We are also planning to have LIST, which is the local initiative support coalition here in Hampton Roads, come to discuss their emerging developers program, which Mr. Marvin mentioned. That is something that they are in the process of standing up as a new program. Their first location in Hampton Roads for that program will be Portsmouth. And they're still working on the programming and the curriculum of that. And I believe they would like to come before you to present and get your support and buy into that. But today we have with us Jolie Spears, who's the executive director of the Hampton Roads Small Business Development Center. She also serves as the vice president of small business with the Hampton Roads Chamber, who we've been working to get before you for some time. Finally, our schedules have aligned, but I think this is a great segue from the minority participation conversation and tie into SBDC and the work that they're doing, and I think additional services that can be provided to the Portsmouth business community. So with that, Ms. Spears, I'm going to turn it over to you, and got a couple of different opportunities that we wanted to present to you today. So Jolie, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be invited to share information about the Small Business Development Center with y'all. I've been on board coming up on 2 years now. I couldn't be more proud of the work that we do as an organization in general, but also this presentation couldn't be better timed.
Right. So this is an example of an SBE. What you're sort of presenting, would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely more opportunity to partner with the work that we are doing, what our mission is.
Yeah.
Overall, really nicely with some of the things that you're talking about. I happen to be a LISC board member, so I know a little bit about the Expand program that Jay and his team are going to present. I think it's great. I think this is as great. So I'm excited to share this information with you. Okay, so the Hampton Roads Small Business Development Center. We're a team of business and technical experts, and we are here to assist entrepreneurs. We do that at no charge. We offer programs and trainings, but we also, like the bread and butter, I would say, of what we do is we offer one-on-one business assistance to small businesses at all stages. So we work with folks who are in the ideation phase. They have a great idea for a business. We work with existing businesses who are trying to grow and expand. And we work with serial entrepreneurs. So folks that are that have exited business, are ready to start a new one. We meet businesses where they are. But really, we're here to help businesses start, to help businesses grow and expand, and to help businesses succeed. We've been in Hampton Roads for more than 30 years. We're part of a statewide network, which is the Virginia SBDC. There's about 20 different centers across the state. George Mason University is the host of the statewide program. Funding from the Small Business Administration that then flows out to the various centers across the state. I'm the executive director of the Hampton Roads Center. We serve 16 localities. Our service area is Williamsburg, the entire peninsula. We go down into Isle of Wight, Franklin, Southampton, pick back up the south side and the 2 counties on the eastern shore. And we are funded by all 16 localities through economic development, like the city of Portsmouth. So thank you for your longtime support and partnership, or the county itself. These are some frequent areas of advising. So again, that business ideation area, people who have a great idea for a business, that's when they need a lot of support, right? Before they go sign a lease, before they invest a lot of their savings into getting a business off the ground, they want to come work with us so that we can help them validate that business idea, do the market research, and put a business plan together that will help ensure their success. For existing businesses, we talk a lot. I heard you guys say access to capital. That's probably one of the biggest things that we focus on, is helping businesses get ready to access capital, to make sure that their financial statements and their bookkeeping is in order so that they have the reports that a lender, whether that be a traditional bank or a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution like LISC or Bridging Virginia, or even an economic development partner like the city of Portsmouth, y'all still have certain financial data and planning that you'd like to see businesses come to you with. And so we can help make sure that that information is together. Real estate acquisition, and then of course, just the storytelling, right? The marketing, the PR, the branding that goes along with a successful business. Because we're part of this Virginia statewide network that I would argue is one of the best SBD programs in the country, we have access to some amazing research tools for businesses. Here's just an example of them: SBDCnet, IBIS World, Profit Cent, Vertical IQ, BizMiner. Those are programs that can help businesses, particularly with their financials, and we can draw data down to NAICS codes, right? So if you're opening a business, we can draw your NAICS code, we can compare it to these national reports that translate to your industry, and we can look at how your margins are. Are you trending above or below? So that tells us, are you doing really well? Or does this data show us that like there's some extra support that you need to help with your business? SEMrush is another great tool that we use. It's for SEO, so for your marketing and website evaluation. These are pretty pricey tools, so we're lucky that we have access to them. Many of the localities that we work with don't even have these tools. So it's a great value add to the businesses that we serve. Again, being part of Virginia's SBDC, we have access to some very special programs that are available at no charge to the businesses that we work with right here in Portsmouth. We have an international business development team. So when you're looking for foreign markets, when you are ready to expand beyond Portsmouth, Hampton Roads, and the Commonwealth, and you're ready to sell to South America or Southeast Asia, we have a team that can help you do that. We have a craft beverage team. Everybody still wants to start a brewery or a kombucha place or some type of craft beverage. So we have a whole team that can support that as well. ICAP is our Innovation Commercialization Assistance Program, high tech, high growth. So if you have a business that is a medical device, an app, something that is going to be larger than just, again, the Commonwealth, the Mid-Atlantic, but it's a big idea that you want to grow big, you know, these kind of Shark Tank ideas, ICAP mentors are here to assist you. And they have a whole accelerator program that they run. We have ICAP mentors that are here based in Hampton Roads, as well as mentors all throughout the state that businesses here in Portsmouth can be paired with based on subject matter expertise. And then I like to claim PTAC, or what is now called Apex Accelerator. It's the federal government procurement program. Although they're not technically part of SBDC, we all report up to the same person at George Mason University. So I like to include them. Great PTAC mentors here in Hampton Roads. Cecilia Cotton, Michelle McCoy are folks that I know Autumn and I talk with quite a bit to help businesses in BuzzCon. Here's an example of programming and events that we do. Anything from setting up your accounting systems, QuickBooks 201, Canva, a primer for small businesses, how to start a business in Spanish, again, being part of this statewide network, even though in Hampton Roads, we are like locally owned and operated, we're still able to tie into all of the centers across the state and the programming that they do. With COVID, everybody pivoted to online. So programming that was once only available in Petersburg or in Fairfax, now the whole state has access to, which is just more benefit for our small businesses because, as you know, many small businesses will Google, QuickBooks, I'm not really quite sure how to use it. The resources that are out there can be overwhelming. And also, you don't know what this person on TikTok really knows about QuickBooks, right? I mean, they say they're an expert, but when you're going through SBDC for your programming, you know it is a vetted, trusted resource that you can count on. I'm very proud of the accountability that we have as a system. So every 5 years, our office is accredited. That means that 4 different centers from across the state come in, they spend a week here. They meet with all of the centers, including Hampton Roads SBDC, to make sure that all the things that we say that we do, we're actually doing. So there's some oversight there. I personally, the Hampton Roads SBDC has performance metrics, a budget that we're held accountable to, client impact goals that we're held accountable to, and we do client surveys. So 3 times a year, we're reaching out to the businesses that we work with, asking for their feedback. After each initial session, the first time they meet with an advisor one-on-one, we survey them so that they can provide feedback. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our impact in just a slide. That impact has to be attributed by the clients that we work with. You can see that Virginia SBDC clients grow 4 times faster and create more jobs than average Virginia businesses. That's some pretty significant differences right there. And then again, for every dollar that's invested in the Small Business Development Center, almost $3 is returned in state and federal tax dollars by the small businesses we serve. That's not including the SBA funds that match the funds that we receive from the city of Portsmouth. So I haven't done the math, but the return on investment is pretty significant. Okay, here's probably the data that you're going to be most interested in. The client demographics specific to the city of Portsmouth. So we do not do any marketing. We need to do some marketing, actually. We need to be telling our story on LinkedIn and getting out there on social media, but right now we don't. It's largely word of mouth and referrals that we receive from folks like Portsmouth Economic Development. So you can see here in the city of Portsmouth, we work with more than 70% Black-owned businesses. We work with about 25% of military affiliated businesses. That's either veteran-owned businesses, military spouse. And about 64%, so more than half of the clients that we see are women-owned businesses. And that's who is coming to us to receive our services. And it sounds like that aligns pretty nicely with the goals that you have overall. Here is more great data. So the top is our overall 5-year snapshot of, again, the 16 localities that we work with across Hampton Roads. And the bottom are the numbers that are specific to Portsmouth. So you can see in 2023, we worked with 49 small businesses here in the city of Portsmouth. Those businesses did about $300,000 in capital formation. Over 5 years here in Portsmouth, we've worked with 152 businesses that did 2.1 million in capital formation. This yellow bar that is capital formation, started businesses, jobs created, and jobs retained. That data right there is attributed by the clients. So they have to say, not only did I get a loan, not only did I do some capital formation, not only did my business start, not only did my business either create or retain jobs, but working with the Hampton Roads SBDC helped me achieve that milestone. So we could work with a business and they could go out and get a $2 million loan, but unless they said, yeah, actually working with you was what helped me do that, we can't count that as impact. So I guess what I'm trying to say, these are very well vetted numbers, and it only reflects about 15% of the clients that we work with, because that's our survey response rate. So we could do a little bit of work there to increase that survey response rate, but I think these are numbers that I'm pretty proud of. So we have very strict confidentiality with the businesses that we work with. Oftentimes folks are like, oh, well, can you just give us a list? Like, I'd love to see like a list of these 152 businesses. And we can't do that because we want to protect the privacy of those businesses. But again, we do ask for releases so we can talk about them in public. And again, like share these success stories. That is my cue right now, actually, to passing some of these books out, hot off the press. So this is 2023 year in review for the statewide network. They publish a book every year, and you'll see that a Portsmouth business is highlighted. And then, so I like to make sure that we tell the success stories. So you'll see Bobby Hansel. She owns a consulting firm. And she gives us credit for helping grow her business from starting out as a solopreneur to now having more than 40 different staff members. So she's one great example. You may know Mark and Katie Frank. They own the Army Navy store that has been in their family, 3 generations in their family right now. They're a current client of ours. We recently worked with them to put some business plans together to build out an entirely new business, but also they successfully received a grant from the city of Portsmouth, and we assisted with a business plan for that. Rose Whaley is a woman that we're working with right now. I think her name is probably familiar to Brian because she is operating out of the commissary kitchen in Norfolk, but she's putting a business plan together with our help to move over to the city of Portsmouth and create a commissary kitchen here. I can tell you there is a real need for food-based businesses to have a place in Portsmouth where they can go and do some of that food prep and test those food-based ideas before they again go out and sign a lease for a restaurant before they maybe have tested some of those concepts. There's another woman that we're working with right now. She is actually doing some contracting. She's a woman in transportation. And so working with us has helped her prepare her capabilities statement and position her for funding. So we, again, receive funding from the city of Portsmouth every year. Historically, that funding has been $5,000 a year. So for $5,000 a year, you've gotten this impact right here. In addition to our sort of like base level resources and services. So something we've done recently is create a program called FAST. It's a curriculum for early stage businesses. Again, when you're in that ideation phase, you want to start a business, you have a great idea. Maybe you've gone even and registered and gotten your LLC, but you're not really off the ground yet. We invite those businesses to go through a 3-part series that we run every month. It's every Tuesday at noon. It's an hour on money. How are you going to find the funds that you need to start your business? And how do you even estimate what your startup costs are so you can know exactly how much money you need? Y'all know, you work with a lot of banks. You always hear the story of someone's going to come into Truist and say, oh, I need a loan first to start my business. Oh, how much money do you need? Oh, I need $150,000. What are you going to do with it? Oh, well, I'm going to hire some staff and a lease. Like we really help businesses hone down on exactly the amount of money that they need to get this business off the ground and a line item by line item for what they're going to do with each part of those funds. So it's an hour on money. It's an hour on management. So a lot of folks, again, are solopreneurs, and let's keep with the restaurant idea. They just want to open a restaurant. Well, it's not just making pizzas that they're going to have to do, right? They're going to have to be an HR manager, hire and retain staff. They're going to have to be an accountant because they're going to be doing their own bookkeeping, or they at least have to understand that the bookkeeping is getting done. They're going to have to be in compliance. So it's a lot of different hats that small business owners wear. So we spend an hour with them just introducing the idea of management. And then we have an hour session on marketing. Again, did you validate your business idea? How are you finding customers? How are you reaching them to let them know that you exist? So again, hour is not a lot of time on those 3 topics, but we think it's foundational to help businesses get a sense of what they'll be talking about when they're working one-on-one with an advisor. We are part of the Build to Scale grant, which 757 CoLab was the lead agency for. It's a federal grant, and the purpose of it is to assist, again, high-tech, high-growth companies here in Hampton Roads. All businesses that we work with have access to our research and specialty programs that I highlighted a few slides earlier. And then, of course, we're talking with Brian and Autumn to assist the small businesses here in Portsmouth that are applying to the EDA for the business investment grants. So for all of that, we are requesting an investment of $14,500 per year. And that is based on a per capita formula that we are newly applying. So I'll be very transparent. Again, 16 localities. Portsmouth gives us $5,000 a year. The city of Hampton gives us $10,000 a year. There hasn't really been a rhyme or reason that I could discern coming into the role why who was paying what. So to kind of make that a little bit more of a level playing field and to give you a reason why we're asking for a specific amount, we're using a per capita formula that is based on the funding that we receive from the SBA. So we receive about $291,000 a year from the SBA, dollar per dollar match. That would mean Portsmouth's share is 14,500. And again, it's a per capita formula that works out to be about 15 cents per capita. So every locality that I'm going to present the same information, I'm asking for that same per capita rate. Yes, sir.
Is there a possibility that, that we could work an arrangement with you folks to have a defined presence here? Possibly here at the, in Portsmouth Work Center, like once a week or once every 2 weeks, that your staff will be here for, the morning session to meet with folks, or is that something that's possible?
Yeah, Brian and I have talked a little bit about that. Right now, although we don't have standing office hours in the city of Portsmouth, we're here all the time because we meet clients where they ask to meet with us. So when we're talking to Mark and Kate and Frank, for example, about Army Navy, first time we met with them, they wanted to come over to our office in Norfolk and enjoy the coffee there, right? So that was our first meeting. The next 3 times we've met with them here in Portsmouth. And it's just a matter of, we ask businesses, where would you like to meet? We can meet you at our offices. We can meet you at your business. We can meet you at Portsmouth Economic Development. And we find that gives both our team and the businesses the flexibility that they're looking for. So we come on request, but we could talk further about what specific office hours look like. It's really, we have a team of 5. So serving the broad geographic area that we serve, we often do need the flexibility to be able to meet clients at times that are convenient for both of our schedules. And again, allowing us the flexibility to do that helps increase the capacity of our team.
Can I add to your question?
Sure. Jump in.
So based on your data, the presence here, your organization presence here, 5%. With this request, funding request, what's your presence is gonna be here in our city? So based on hours you spent for the city of Portsmouth, which were 800 hours versus 15 hours, you have all total. If you go to the report that you just provided.
Sure.
So I see your presence here, only 5% of your time. Here it is, client contact prep hours.
Right.
So that 828 is just 5% of the whole year hours. So with this 15,000 that you're getting from us, what's your presence here in the city?
I think.
Well, how you're gonna help us, you're gonna devote more hours, more businesses open.
No, actually, I don't think that. I would like
Okay.
to say that
Okay.
with an increase in funding, we would necessarily devote more hours. And
Okay.
that's because what we have, these results with $5,000 a year, I don't think is sustainable. And if we're getting to a more sustainable level of programming with the staff that we have newly hired that has increased specialties. So again, I mentioned that we're a team of 5. We have 3 full-time advisors. I'm half-time advisor, and we have a client service coordinator. Those 3 advisors that we have right now, one has a specialty in finance. There really is not a financial deal that Bill Holleran hasn't seen in his 30, 40 years of private industry that he's now bringing to bear to our team. Todd DeRose just sold his full service marketing firm that he ran for almost 20 years and is now looking to give back to the community. So he's working with us as a SBDC advisor with a marketing expertise. And then Donna Norman, who had a career with Dollar in finance and HR and is SHRM certified. She's on our team now too. So that level of expertise, even though folks understand they're working for a nonprofit and they have a nonprofit salary, we're able to provide expertise that if a business was getting a marketing plan put together for them, that's easily a $3,000 to $5,000 investment. And that would take $2,000. That would mean that we were serving maybe 5 businesses a year. And I understand, I do want to say, we're asking for more funding, and I understand that you think, oh, well, then we'll get triple, right? If we paid you 5,000, now you're asking for 15, that should be a threefold increase. But I would say that we made that investment on the front end. We've already made that investment in the community, and now we're asking for the funding to follow. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I understand that. In other words, $14,000 gets us continuation of what we already have.
Yes, sir.
But you just heard the discussion, prior to this, that we're interested in ramping up that service. And my question to you is, how do we do that?
So in addition to the base level funding that we're requesting at 14,500, we're also presenting an additional proposal for you for something called the Portsmouth Contracting Institute, which would be a joint program of the City of Portsmouth Economic Development and the Hampton Roads SBDC to increase the capacity and success of small businesses to do business with the City of Portsmouth and beyond. So the goals for participation in this program would be for businesses to improve marketing to the City of Portsmouth. So oftentimes, and this is a little bit related to when you're doing federal work and you have to market to the companies or the contracts that you would like to serve. So we'll help businesses understand what the needs of the City of Portsmouth are and how they can align with them. Building procurement and contract knowledge will improve their proposal writing and RFP response. Understand again the City of Portsmouth needs and the procurement process here. They'll build professional relationships. Again, maybe they'll start to understand how to make connections with those majority contractors and become bond ready. So we're proposing an 8-week program, and you can see that outlined week by week, what that would look like. In person, hosted here on site at Portsmouth Economic Development. The emphasis would be on positioning businesses to grow and expand while meeting the business needs of the City of Portsmouth. We will lead it, our team, and with participation from public and private partners. And this is based on 2 successful accelerator models that the Mason SBDC office, which serves Northern Virginia, has done with the Washington Municipal Airport Authority to increase the capacity of those contractors and the Department of Energy. So it's based on a successful model that has run over the past 4 years with those 2 large organizations that help them increase the capacity of the contractors they were working with so that new contractors could come on board and existing contractors would be ready to bid on bigger jobs. The timeline can be as quick as you like. We have the curriculum and the subject matter experts lined up, so we're sitting on go. We could start advertising that program as soon as May. And we have some funding built into our budget to do direct marketing, and we would take the lead from you. But I think that would look like purchasing a couple of business lists for businesses in the City of Portsmouth, sorting those by NAICS codes. And that would either be like businesses that we know you will need for some of the expansion projects that you have on your books, the waterfront development, for example, or businesses that you would like to see in general increase their capacity and do some direct targeted marketing to reach those businesses. We would publicize it in general, but I think doing some of that direct targeted marketing outreach to businesses that you would like to see participate based on whatever parameters you give us, and they could be the parameters that were defined in the disparity study. So we would want to spend some time doing that marketing to targeted businesses and then run the 8-week in-person cohort. And then the rest of the time through the end of fiscal year 2025, we would spend doing one-on-one advising with those businesses. They need that initial cohort model where they're going through these 8 weeks of training to get a lot of the foundational understanding of what it takes to increase their capacity and to be ready to do business, not only with the City of Portsmouth, but hey, City of Norfolk too, right? Like the cities here in Hampton Roads, the state, and then to grow that expertise into federal contracts too. But that one-on-one advising that would follow the 8-week cohort, I think is what will help additionally move the needle. So there's a whole list of anticipated outcomes, but I think, again, the big ones are better understanding of how to do business with the City of Portsmouth, that preparation to be bond ready, understanding various types of contracts and compliance requirements that go with those, again, for the City of Portsmouth, and if you like, beyond. This whole cost accounting and cost estimation, which is what trips up a lot of small businesses, And then part of the program is that they're answering sample RFPs from the city of Portsmouth in real time, getting feedback from procurement officers and other folks with the city of Portsmouth to better understand like how they could, when they're doing it for real, improve that process. So here is the requested budget for that. Although we have a great team with SBDC and we will lead some of the programming, there are subject matter experts in this area of government contracting that we would want to pay to come and do some of this work with us. There are other in-kind partners that we would work with as well, like Apex Accelerator, Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. Many of y'all know Angie Barber. But there are folks that we would want to pay, again, especially around cost estimation, proposal writing, and doing some marketing to the state that's just beyond the EVA system. Because we know that if all that we did was increase the businesses in the city of Portsmouth, their capacity to do work with the city of Portsmouth and help you guys have a pipeline of businesses that could answer your RFPs, that would be wonderful. But what is really going to grow those businesses is when they can figure out how to leverage that experience that they have with you to the city of Portsmouth, to the city of Chesapeake, then to the state of Virginia, and possibly to the federal government. They got to strengthen and grow and expand your existing business base in the city of Portsmouth. So we have a little bit of direct marketing funds in there. The program development and delivery, and you can see the hours broken out for that in this sheet. And then we propose an additional amount of funding to continue to work with the following 8 months with those businesses one-on-one, advising them, helping them to work through in real time the process of bidding on an actual proposal. Again, we can target this by NAICS code or any other type of framework that you would like to see identified. Yes, ma'am.
Have you done the specific programming with any other city?
No, you'd be the first.
We'll be the first, okay. And do you have a time of day that you would do this type of?
Yes, ma'am. I think we would do like probably a morning session, like 8 to noon. The program that was done with Washington Municipal Airport Authority and Department of Energy, those were full day programs. We could do it full day. I think that we would probably need to hear from you what you would prefer, but the budget would stay the same.
Isn't there some redundancy of what this is offering and what you already offer for Portsmouth?
No, sir, because this is specifically focused on procurement and taking a targeted group of businesses through a process to help them increase their capacity. It's not that we don't necessarily do that one-on-one with businesses, but it's not in a packaged or as comprehensive way as this program proposes.
And also, we had a conversation on collection of data, and you seem to collect a lot of data, but you said it's not available for us it's not available to share with us.
All of the data is available to share with you. I can share with you around NAICS codes. I can share with you down to zip code. I can share with you if it's women, if it's all of those sort of demographics, but we don't generally share a list of the names of businesses. If that was important to you, I think for this program, that would be different. We would give you the names of the businesses that ran through this program. But for our general business advising folks that come with us, we don't disclose that because many small businesses feel like if that information was public, it might reflect on them poorly. Like you might think, oh, well, they're going to get consulting from the SBDC. Are they in trouble? Is their business not doing well? When often that's not the case. We're just there to help strengthen them. But for this specific PCI, Portsmouth Contracting Institute program, we would give you the full list of businesses that participated. You'd be working in partnership with us to deliver that programming as well.
How could you support this with your 5-person staff? This is like extra work, a lot of extra work for you with 5 people.
Well, there's a little bit of an extra budget that goes to help us increase our capacity to do it.
Okay. And my last statement, with the 14,500, would that help you create additional marketing to get the program message out there? Because you said yourself that you could do more as Instagram and LinkedIn, for instance, but you're not doing it. So would that afford you the opportunity to do it?
Yes, it does, because it allows us to increase the capacity of our staff. And it's not a huge budget. It's just, y'all know this is the conversation we have with small businesses all the time. You have capacity constraints. And so it's like, where do you put your resources? We've been focused so much on just like delivering, advising, working with the small businesses. but we know it's time to just carve out a little bit more of our availability to tell that story in a way that will reach businesses. I'll tell you this, we don't have a problem with people in the ideation phase finding us. Close to half of the businesses that we work with every year are early stage. And it's really important that those businesses get critical support at an early stage. But our job is to create economic development, to be your partners in creating economic development for the city, which is like tax dollars. And so we need to work more with existing businesses that are maybe at $100,000 in revenue that we can help grow to $200,000, $300,000, $5,000 in revenue and take the $100,000 revenue folks to $1 million. So our emphasis is on, as much as it is supporting new businesses and always having that great innovation bubbling up in the city of Portsmouth, we want to strengthen existing businesses to help them grow and expand and strengthen their tax base, and again, create real economic development for the city.
So we have worked with the SPDC several times this year. They helped us with business plan classes, financial classes. We've worked with Apex, which is a partner that was mentioned for government certifications. We've worked with all these different entities, pushing individual programs out, but we've been piecemealing it. And it needs to be a strategic program that teaches these businesses how to actually grow their business and be government contractors. I think doing those individual courses is helpful, but it's not giving them the foundation they need to get to that level where they can actually be eligible for the RFP and have the funding in place. And I feel like this program will help them build that foundation and get us the numbers we need to put some other inspection.
Do you have, for this program, do you have a targeted, well, two questions. What would be your method of reaching out and identifying companies? And do you have a targeted number of companies that you need to have in order to make it effective? In terms of, you don't want to, I wouldn't be supportive of paying $23,000 if two companies show up.
Sure.
So, how do you make that work?
It would be to have about 15 businesses.
So if you don't get the 15, what happens?
We're gonna get the 15. And we're going
That's-
to, if we
okay.
don't get this,
Best case scenario.
I think what we.
I'm not trying to be difficult, but if you don't get the 15,
there are 15 businesses in the city of Portsmouth that would benefit from this program. We will find 15 businesses. I don't want it to just be, what's the tourism analogy? I don't want it to just be heads and beds, butts and seats, but I was trying to find a nicer way to say that. I don't want it to just be people sitting in the room. Like we want businesses for whom there is some level of capacity for them to take this information and go to the next level. And that's going to require partnering with Autumn, Brian, the team at Economic Development. You guys probably off the top of your head have some ideas of businesses for whom this program would be beneficial, but then it's also doing direct marketing and hearing from y'all, what are the industries, what are the next codes, what are the businesses that you would like to see go through this program? And we go out there and we one-on-one talk to them and tell them why it's important for them to sign up and go through the program.
and a follow-up question, have you built into this program, since we're the first ones, what are going to be your metrics for success that you can report back to us so that we can say, what's the return on investment?
I think for a pilot program, we'd work collaboratively to come up with what those outcomes are. I think the number of businesses participating would be a good one. I think having them put capability statements together, make sure that they're registered on EVA, like there's lots of those things that can be metrics for this. I would like to say that a percentage of those businesses will put out, answer a bid, answer an RFP.
Okay.
So just a follow-up, I'm sure, James, your question about participation. The reason Jolie is here presenting today is the direct result of the disparity study. Autumn and I sat down with Jolie, gosh, it was probably 6 or 9 months ago, to have this conversation because we knew what the therapy study was presenting. And we knew there was a need based on that. We also knew there was a need based on the conversations and interactions we've had with the businesses that are participating in the grant programs that we've been running for the last 2 years. So we know there's an interest, we know there's a need. Autumn just commented on the fact that we're really kind of lacking a fully developed program. We've been kind of piecemealing it, bringing in partners, on many occasions it's SBDC, but we don't have an actual program. This is a fully developed and vetted program that would put a business through a process where at the end of it, they would come out and they would have, all of the things they need be in place to pursue a procurement opportunity. So I don't think the participation, whether it's, 10 businesses, 15 businesses, 20, will be an issue because we're going to be working with Jolie and her team to make sure we're funneling businesses to the program. I think what we could do in advance of launching a program is we could do some outreach to determine how many businesses are interested in participating ahead of time. So we could kind of do a survey to understand what the demand is. And then with that, we can work with Jolie and her team to kind of, if we need to increase capacity there or decrease it, we can kind of figure that out. But this is kind of the basis of a program that hasn't existed anywhere. And we've had some conversations about this being kind of an example of what can be done regionally, because again, this is not just a Portsmouth issue. This is a Hampton Roads, this is a Virginia issue. And I think this would be a model and kind of a case study for how, we respond to minority participation challenges that we've had as a city, but they exist in every Hampton Roads community. So I would hope it would be replicated in Chesapeake, in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, perhaps.
I definitely do see the need for it. I see that, but I wonder if this is something that we could partner with redevelopment and housing, the city with us, because I know they have the similar problems as well. I mean, maybe they would benefit with, because they need minority people and to respond to their RFPs and that type of thing. So maybe we could partner with other departments in the city.
I will say, and I'll go into more detail portion of the agenda. But with us having the How to Do Business with Portsmouth event coming up, this is, we've been in communication with Housing Authority, with other schools, with the procurement office, and they've all said that this is a need, that's working together on boosting the minority participation, but having that program and having nothing to follow up, it would be a disservice to the community. So I think this would be a great opportunity to market this program. After How to Do Business with Portsmouth, we have all the student officers present, and then also market this as an opportunity after you complete this one-day event to actually get the education to execute.
Just, probably the school system can be also another city organization to benefit significantly.
They discussed the desire to partner with economic development, and say committed to being president of the local body.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
I'm really proud of the work that we do. I know that it makes an impact to the businesses that we serve. And I know that we can be a great partner for you in continuing to do the general level of business advising that our office does every day. But I think that we could also deliver a very successful procurement program where Portsmouth could be a leader in Hampton Roads with that. And it's something that perhaps we could next in coming years, bring other localities to the table to participate in as well, so that Portsmouth businesses would be able to grow outside of the city. And that you would also have a pipeline of businesses in the region that could answer your RFP needs.
You say you have testimonials and success stories on your website?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
But if that's something that you would like for me to have some written testimonials from the small businesses that we worked with, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'd like to see how the businesses in Portsmouth were actually impacted by working with you.
Sure.
And I would just refer you to the sample that was handed out. You've got, I think, a good number of testimonies kind of in here, including
Okay.
I think a couple of Portsmouth-based businesses as well. That were assisted through their office. So I did a quick flip through and I would recommend it because there's some good stories.
And we'll discuss Jolie's request during the closed session.
Okay, so we're gonna try to move quickly because we do have a number of items on the agenda ahead of us. But wanted to just provide some brief updates. The first is an update on the acquisition of 1220 High Street. This is the former Enterprise car rental location at High and Elm Avenue. We did close on the acquisition of that property last Friday. So that is now another EDA-owned property. I'd like to thank Brian King and Dave Foster, who are here from Harvey Lindsay. They've assisted with that acquisition. So we do now have the ownership of that property, and we're going to be working on a marketing plan for the lease or sale of the property. And I think we've got a couple of prospects right now that we've been working with through our office. So we'll keep you posted on that. And the air conditioning has been replaced and is functioning as well. So we'll provide updates going forward on the progress there. 1117 and 1121 High Street. We have a complete set of bid documents for the roof replacement. We just obtained last week. So we are going to be working with the city's purchasing office to put a bid request out for roof replacement so that we can do the process of making some improvements on the interior of the former Shiny Computers location. And then we are getting some price quotations for some design work to do that, as well as doing some updates on the exterior and the site as well. So hopefully in May, we'll have some updates on the bid status for the roof replacement, but also the expense associated with the design for improvements. A quick update on the waterfront redevelopment project. As you are aware, we have completed the market study and development assessment for the site. So we do have the final version of that document. It has been finalized by AECom, and that is something that we have ready. There is the ability to have AECom provide additional services as part of the solicitation process. So we have a proposal that's under review for that when the time comes to move forward. At your direction, at your last meeting, we have been working to procure a number of the due diligence items that AECom came back and identified as things that they thought would be beneficial for the solicitation package. We have issued a purchase order for an environmental site assessment. You can see the expense associated with that there. We are doing the same for the commercial real estate appraisal and some geotechnical engineering analysis of the soils at the site, so we know what types of development each individual parcel can accommodate. So the cost there is just over $21,000, and those are all three of those are moving forward. So just a few next steps here that we've included. The first is briefing our incoming city manager on the status of this project, making sure they're up to speed and aware of what work has been done to date, and then what the proposal is for moving forward. And that would lead to the next item, which is really kind of the development of the solicitation process, parameters and benchmarks that will help to get us started and then moving forward on a timely scheduled process. We've included a city council briefing. I believe there's been discussion about perhaps a joint meeting at some point for the EDA and city council to get together to discuss the project priorities and kind of finalize that solicitation process so that we have direction and cooperation moving forward. And then, of course, the development of the actual solicitation package itself resulting in the RFI or RFO issuance. I do believe at this point in time, we're looking at a two-part process. An initial request for interest from development groups. With that, we would look to see what the interest level was, and you could shortlist that down to a handful of those respondents and have them issue formal offers or proposals afterwards. So just kind of a quick capture on the process, and we're going to be working to kind of build out that benchmark and the schedule for moving forward. This is kind of a summarization of that framework. Any questions on the waterfront process? George?
So you can be sure that when this comes to city council, the disparity issue is going to be brought front and center. So you need to address that from the very outset as you're putting the study brief together.
Is understood and noted. So we will work building out the parameters, selection criteria. Those will all be
Quick
items in.
Quick follow-up question to the council. For the city attorney, do you think we will have a policy that was discussed by that time?
No, this is where the policy is right now. There are drafts of it, and the city actually has a policy that the school board has used that we could easily follow. There have been drafts, policies that the administration has developed over the years. We've recently sort of scrubbed that and made it more modern based on the laws as they stand today. And so we will pass it on to the manager, and then he will include whatever policies are relative to the city that go outside the legal parameter. But I don't know, depending on the timing, I'm not sure how.
Just a quick follow-up question then.
How quickly that will be.
Do we need to have that policy in place before we do the RFPs, in your opinion, for whatever documentation we put out, or can we modify that in a subsequent issue?
So I think that's a two-part question, the two-part answer. I think you can proceed with your aspirational goals and the things that you already know that you want based on the disparity study and things that you've done historically. I think the policy can be shaped based on those very same things. And so I don't think they're going to be incongruent. So I think that would be the only concern if the policy somehow is very different from what the goals are. So
and the only reason I'm asking that is I don't want us to get sideways and delayed.
Right. I don't
what we need to do.
No.
Okay.
The policy that we're creating is broader for the entire city.
Okay.
What you're working on is very specific to this development. And I think there will be a similar path.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say, but.
I would say what? But.
So at the council meeting, when we had this discussion about policy and the city attorney took action to start the work. Part of my rationale for asking for that is that we have done these one-off invent new language for the next thing, and the guardrails that we put into that language were unique to each thing.
Sure.
And so my concern is that unique leads to inconsistency. And we haven't been consistent in how we have either incentivized or penalized in the various things that we've done, even across the year or so that I've been on council. But if you rewind further back, we're even more all over the map. So I guess my encouragement is, while we ought not to tie our hands and wait, we need to work in concert with the attorney as she's working on the policy so that we have the best information on where the city policy is going to inform what y'all are getting ready to do, so that we don't end up with yet another flavor of language that ends up being ultimately crossways with where the city language is hopefully going to go.
Let me just follow up to that. It's very important that this is understood as a collaborative effort. The legal department handles the legal lane of it. The policy aspect of it has to come from the manager's office, and that direction has to come from the policy priorities set by council. If the policy priorities are not set by council and clearly conveyed to the manager that's coming in, we will continue to have this cycle.
Yeah.
And so I encourage all of us to collaboratively participate in that process.
Understood.
So can you talk to us about the policy priorities by city council? Has that started? Where do we stand with that?
I think they have ideas about what they want it to look like. And I think as you all have your discussions with them about the development and letting them know how the project is proceeding, it will inform that discussion. They can right now just kind of, talk broadly about what their goals are. But I think specific to this project, the one-on-one is going to be very important, which will likely include the manager as well. So I think it will ultimately come together. They did not develop strategies at their retreat this year, so we don't have the bigger picture priorities, but I'm anticipating that 2025 will be very different and we'll have more priorities to go forth then. So in due time.
We're going to work with our liaisons to help us.
Very good.
Hey, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dan and have Autumn give you just a quick update on some of the small business event support and planning that we've been doing. I think we've locked in a few dates, so just wanted to give you an update.
So the last time we met, the board approved 3 events, that will occur this summer. The first is how to do business with Portsmouth, which will occur on May 20th at TCC from 11 to 2, the Portsmouth location. Right now we have 4 city agencies committed to be presenters. Housing Authority, Public Schools, Economic Development, and the Procurement Office. They will all have 45 minutes to speak on how to do business with their agency and any current or upcoming projects that they have that businesses can bid on. We have 20 committed table exhibitors. We're aiming for 25. And then on May 30th, we have the Small Business Networking event, who we are partnering with HR Chamber. And we'll be hosting at Time on the River from 5:30 to 7 p.m. and that's open to Portsmouth businesses. That space has been committed, and we are looking at start advertising. Then we have confirmed July 6th, the first Saturday in July for the Portsmouth Block Party Experience. We have communicated with OTBA and the Farmers Market. They are both on board and excited for the event. They both have events that occur on first Saturday that will be a good combination with the block party and drive more traffic. And that was all my updates. Any questions?
And I'll just go ahead and say, in case somebody was going to ask, yes, you are all invited to the Small Business Networking event on May 30th, so you will get an email with details. But we hope you're able to join us for that. And the block party experience is really meant to turn that, kind of farmers market morning market into kind of an all-day affair on High Street throughout Old Town and giving businesses the entire stretch the opportunity to to host, visitors.
That's really great. If you guys haven't been down to the farmer's market lately, they have really expanded it, particularly on the first weekends. It is a joy to see Portsmouth lit up that way. I mean, there's bodies up and down High Street and County Street. There's vendors who make an effort every week to come to Portsmouth to sell their wares. And they have it incorporates the Middle Street Garage. So I think this block party is going to be a real treat if you can get a chance to go down there. I think it's eye-opening.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it as well. I think anytime we can do things to make people feel good about living in Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's definitely
It's a
one
good
of them.
thing.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think this is the beginning of activities that throughout the summer is successful and that we can continue to build on.
Absolutely.
Have we talked about, I know you were looking into how we were gonna market it so that the citizens would know.
Oh, yeah, so we met with the marketing department yesterday, and we laid out the marketing plan for all three events. So, we will have additional budget outside of what you would include, to get the event out, throughout.
And some of the restaurants, have they expressed excitement about it or?
So we had to finalize the date before we could start advertising or announcing that the event was coming. We have spoken to a lot of business owners and just discussed the idea, and everybody has been excited about it. So now that we confirmed the first Saturday in July, now we can start promoting it and recruiting. There will be a website built, and on that website, businesses can register to participate in the event, because that is the prime focus, is to bring attention to the businesses. And then vendors can register to be table exhibitors at the event as well.
I'll say the folks that run the farmers market are very excited for this collaboration. They've done a lot of work to help farmers market vendors who are interested in growing and expanding. And the ribbon cutting we just did at Hello Sweeties Cheesecake, is a great
Yes.
example. They
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
as a
Yeah, right.
home business and then a farmer's market vendor, still are a farmer's market vendor, but have their own brick and mortar. And there's a keen interest from the farmer's market organizers for this kind of collaboration to engage the vendors that are there on Saturdays.
And they mentioned, the two events that are currently on Saturdays, the flea market and the parking garage, and then the farmer's market at Cross Street. The gap in the two audiences connecting, and they feel the block party will help fill that gap and show that there is something going on High Street where they can gravitate and continue. And they committed to extending their permits to 5 o'clock so that their venues can stay. And continue to be part of the block party during our time. And we will just expand on what they're already doing. And just build all three events. I like all that.
Gonna be a busy day.
Yeah.
Block your calendar,
Good job.
July 6th. We'll see you there.
That's great.
Right, we're now transitioning to new business items, and the first item is a real property investment grant at 847 Mount Vernon Avenue. Ms. Tracy is going to present this item to you.
Morning, everyone. As you know, April is one of our rounds for our grants, and our real property investment grant has received 2 applications so far, only one for a request over $10,000. I do anticipate several more applications coming in by the end of the month, so please get ready for those on your May agenda. But for today, I have 847 Mount Vernon Avenue for you, and this property is owned by Sean Ingram. He has 847 Mount Vernon LLC. He has 2 tenants in there currently. He purchased the property 3 years ago and had these tenants made a long-standing since. AT ship repair, and then Katie shipyard repairs, so maritime businesses. This is part one of a much larger renovation that he wants to complete. So these are smaller items right now. He wants to remove and replace 8 windows. Those are the street facing windows. Remove and replace the fencing and the screening, and then install a new driveway. His total project cost right now is only at $21,359, and he is requesting 50% reimbursement for $10,679.50. Wanted to give you a map of where 847 Mount Vernon Avenue is. It's in Port Norfolk at the intersection of Portland Street and Mount Vernon Avenue, and I'm getting to know Port Norfolk, so I wanted to label a few things. So Epsilon is right here, and then Florida Park. And this is what the property currently looks like. It's pretty beige, pretty boring. And I know I mentioned that this is part one. Sean lives and works in Richmond, but he has a vested interest here in Portsmouth. That's where his family is from, and specifically the Port Norfolk area. We just took a tour of the rail yard in Norfolk, and that's where he's drawing his inspiration for his overall vision, where he wants to actually replace all of the siding around the building with dark gray siding, put a new roof on. He's looking to do more like industrial gooseneck lanterns to actually light the property. So while it is still going to be for maritime ship repair businesses, it will look a lot more like a modern industrial look in Port Norfolk. So for now, he is going to replace, there's 8 windows, here's 5 of them, and then there's more on the roof of the building. And this fencing all the way around, he's going to replace, he's taking the blue off and he will replace it with black. And then he's actually going to install the driveway. Doesn't go on the screen. The driveway will be where you see the gates on the fence. So he's already spoken with the engineering department for the city to have his plans approved. This is a short and sweet application. Have some answer questions.
Second.
Second was by Mr. James. Is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you,
Second.
sir. Need the roll. Mr. Barber, Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. James.
Yes.
Chair, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, the next item is, the demolition of 73 Farragut Street. We've been working quite some time to make this happen. So I'm excited to bring this before you today. It's not the most exciting project, but given the length of time it takes to get it together, I'm excited. So we have issued, invitation for bids. That was done in early March, closed on the 18th of March. We did receive 4 bids for the demolition and clearance of the property. The low bid was CRW Incorporated at $18,375. And that is a woman-owned business. We are ready to move forward. In fact, they had actually moved a backhoe or excavator out there, I think a week or so ago. So they're ready to go as well. But before we do that and have the contract executed, we just need more authorization for the funding now that we have a good amount that's been received.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
I think it's my own minor discussion. They're so far under the bid. If they did a great job, will we be able to give them a $2,000 kiss or something?
I don't think that's an Chairman.
Never been asked that question before. I don't believe that, based on the city's procurement, procedures like that would be possible. but certainly, I think, well, first, let me say this, we did, reach out to do some verification of past performance, and the responses that were received were stellar. They have a great reputation, so I think they are going to do a wonderful job to your point, which would, I think, provide opportunity for them to participate in other projects as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, the performance and proper disposal of the material. Are they gonna be able to?
Yes, sir. I personally spoke with references and they gave excellent, recommendations and examples, and that this, female-owned business is quite a go-getter.
Great.
Okay, there is a, motion and a second, and if it's, if you turn back.
Sure.
Okay.
That's right.
Mr. Barber? Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith?
Yeah.
And Mr. James?
Yes.
Chair, the item is approved by a vote of 5-0. Okay, the next two items are just some brief updates on the two committees that you all formed at your March meeting. The first is the Business Investment Grant Program Committee, which is being chaired by our treasurer, Mrs. Saunders Smith, and Mrs. Smith, who's not here today. We did meet as a committee on April 4th, and we had some good dialogue and discussion. And Saunders Smith, if you want to add anything briefly to the conversation, I'll let me just pause for a minute. Our goal is to come back before you in May with some proposed modifications to the program. We do this annually, working to, improve the program, the parameters, some of the eligibility requirements that get reviewed. So we will be back before you with a full-blown presentation. My apologies for introducing you and cutting you off, but is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I would just kind of go very quickly over some of the things. A lot of this is housekeeping just to make the grant, flow easier. One of the things we talked about is the requirement for a pre-application meeting with the staff, prior to the grant of being awarded. Obviously, we want to make sure we're dealing with the person who they say they are. So we thought that would be something we should add. Require property owner contact information on the consent form. The inclusion of the shopping center category, I wanted to bring it back to you all to make sure I understood the direction of the committee. It obviously can be a very costly adventure to include shopping centers. I think we were talking more initially about just making them look better and that type of thing. And so I didn't know whether or not you had a cap in mind when you started talking about shopping centers, and pavements or concrete can be very expensive. You could talk tens of thousands of dollars very easy. So I want us to have a little bit more discussion on that. We also talked about increasing the number of grant awards for a multi-tenant property. Because I think you want to talk about that a little, Brian. I think you said there were two it was a multi-property. Only two applicants of that multi-property could apply for the grant. And so obviously if you have a business with 6 tenants or 10 tenants, so that would knock out the rest. And so we were talking about, you want to talk about that?
Thank you. Yes, and I appreciate you pointing that out. We've kind of run into this periodically from time to time. Right now there's a provision that for an individual parcel, I guess, a multi-tenant property, the grant programs can be used twice. But what we have seen, and this is primarily tied to the real property investment grant. But we've had a couple of projects that have recently come through, one of which includes the Mustard Seed Place, which has 12 businesses within its establishment on High Street. If there were multiple businesses that were needed. You know, it limits that severely. So I'm looking at potential to increase that. Now, whether that's 3 or 5, we haven't really set a limit, but we have found there are a couple of instances where, you know, there were more than 2 businesses that had an interest in the program.
Why is that, why is that limited? If the businesses are individual entities just happening to share a location, why is it limited? Who could apply for grants? Is it like first come, first serve?
Well,
Does a property only get first opportunity to bid, or the biggest business? How does it work?
Yeah, good question. And there's a couple of reasons. The first is, you know, an individual property owner is able to use the grant program. So one individual could use the grant, more than 2 if that was not a limit, and using up the funds that could be used by others. And then the same thing with respect to the businesses. You know, we have a limited pot of funds, $300,000 is what you've allocated annually. So you can use a lot of that funding quickly at just one location and would really, you know, take those funds and not provide other businesses throughout the city the opportunity to participate. So
So the property owner is given like first priority in applying for grants when he.
Based on the physical address.
So the physical address has 5 businesses in it, but it's owned by one person, and that one person wants to improve the exterior of that business. Does he get priority over a tenant, over somebody that he's leasing to, a business that he's leasing to inside of the business?
We don't establish the priority, but I will say in a lease scenario, the property owner must approve of the application being submitted.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard.
Must approve of the grant application being submitted.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they need to also be able to demonstrate that the tenant is required to make those improvements. So,
Or that they can, that's improvement that they would approve of. I mean,
Well, not what the tenant wouldn't make an improvement to a building that they don't own per se, but if the tenant applied for a grant for another specific reason, one of our startup grants. So you got 4 tenants in one building, and each of them want to apply for a startup grant. Is it first come, first served basis, or how is it prioritized by?
the startup grant is a bit different. We don't really limit that.
Okay.
That has no tie to a physical location.
Okay.
Or ability to apply. So you could have all 12 businesses in a building applying for the.
Okay, so it's just certain
real
grants.
estate grant.
Okay. Okay.
okay,
Yeah, I'm clear. Thank you.
okay. All right, increase the signage allowance was 2,500 to 5,000. This is what we talked about. We also talked about the contractors being licensed, D4 licensed and insured. And, the swam contractor business boost to grant amount. What was that? I don't remember that.
One of the items that was discussed was the possibility of providing a, I guess, boost or increase in funding for utilization of SWAM businesses. And this, again, is tied to, you know, the disparity study and results.
Oh, yeah.
Disparity study looking to grow and provide further opportunities for SWAM contracting. We have not had a discussion on this item with the city attorney's office, so this was something that was kind of proposed. So we would need to review that and see if there's an ability to do that. And, you know, right now, the maximum funding available through the real estate investment grant program is $25,000. So the thought was the applicant was committed to using SWAM contractors or businesses for the performance of their work. Would that allow for a higher level of funding so they could actually do more work, provide some benefit? So that was something that was proposed. And again, we'll be, you know, coming back, I think, with recommendations.
And then on the business development side, we talked about the fact that they had to have a physical address and no mailboxes, because some of the applications were coming in that way. We talked about the tenants, they must have a minimum of 6 to 12 month lease requirement in order to apply, for the grant. And a copy of the lease is required. For a home-based business, they must have proof of the Portsmouth residency, which could be the lease. We require that they have a financial statement for a business plan, which obviously they can come here and get assistance with that. But we think that that's a real important step. A business plan template is required, and we're looking at, educational requirements to be developed when it comes to business. That's just to assist them. And education development could be our programming, as a part of it. Do I have any heartburn or questions about anything we're discussing? Okay. All right, we'll proceed on it and have a final recommendation in May.
Correct, at your May meeting, yes, we'll have something presented. And the objective here is to have revised program guidelines.
I do have one question for you. The pre-application, I'm going back to this data collection and analysis. The pre-application period, that would be an ideal time to collect additional data as well, ideal opportunity, because I don't know what's included in your pre-application. But like I said, once we identify the data that we want to collect, we could have it collected at different points, whether they the first business application, whether they're renewing their application and we want to collect additional information, or whether they're doing a pre-application for this grant type thing and we want to try to gather some additional data. This just like ideal data collection points that don't seem intrusive or out of the way for a business to have to go to and provide us with additional information that we could use.
Dave, when you apply for a business license, is it categorized?
It's a simple form. I just did my renewal and I don't know what.
General category.
General, yeah,
Specific category.
not specific.
So action, if you are explaining business and they indicate that they're from their own minority owned background. We report that.
That's something the city could do as part of the business license.
That's a question for the commissioner. Who
Yeah.
has the business licenses. There's nothing legal about it. To legally do it, it's just a question.
Yeah, and historically, they're not most. I haven't seen anybody be very successful in getting that information from the commissioner. Because for privacy, I'm trying to say it nicely.
That is true.
I was looking for help on that answer.
That is true.
So you may want, we can work with the application and get it from the application that they fill out.
Yeah, that's my idea.
Right.
We do collect.
Right, so you can,
the add the additional data that we
You can mine
to
that.
the application.
mhm.
And I have on my list of notes here, a follow-up with the Commissioner of Revenue to talk about the data there.
Right.
Mhm.
Um,
I miss
Thank
my
you.
business days, I tell you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, question over there.
So Mr. Brown's, or Commissioner Brown's earlier question reminded me of something I saw during the State of the City at the Norfolk session. Mayor Alexander described a facade improvement grant. I don't think we have anything like that. Is this the avenue?
Well,
That's,
actually,
to do facade improvement?
the facade improvement grant was the precursor to this grant.
Okay.
In other words, it started out as facade improvement many years ago.
yeah,
And over time, we've expanded the eligibility. So facade improvement is still an important component of that, but it provides greater our program provides greater flexibility than the Norfolk program.
But this would be the avenue to do facade improvement for a
Yep.
small business owner.
Yep.
It's gradual
It has
business.
been used historically for that, in many instances.
Thank you.
Is this historical reference noted in the minutes at all, in your process? What I find is that sometimes we have questions, things are reinvented when they really, as new when they really aren't. And I think that's an important point, what you pointed out.
That is,
Is there some historical recording of the fact that this grant used to be something else, maybe in the minutes potentially or something? Or,
I believe so, and I think, it's evolved over the
Sure,
years. And
sure.
I believe annually, the process we're going through right now, where we will be bringing the new proposed set of guidelines and an
Right.
application essentially for approval and a resolution to adopt, has been done
sure,
every time. It's kind of morphed into something
okay.
greater than what it originally was.
I only ask that because oftentimes when certain programs are challenged, it's really important to have that sort of gradation of how it evolved into what it is and what the purpose was and how the intent changes with the culture or the purpose or the intent. So it's very important to memorialize that in some way for your legal department to be able to go back and justify challenges that may occur. The du jour issue changes often, and sometimes it's very good to know what factors contributed to those changes when. So.
We do have one other new business item, and that is an update on the small business financing committee. Mr. Barber, recap.
We had a meeting with staff, and Matthew, sorry that you were unable to attend, but we did discuss, what we perceived and what the staff has, and their experience in terms of what the needs would be for financing, working capital financing, and contract were sort of identified as two of the primary needs, and that would be for companies that we talked about earlier that are small businesses that are wanting to ramp up, but having difficulty finding that working capital in order to do that, or they're wanting to take advantage of contracting opportunities and don't have the capital to expand the businesses to do that. Part of that discussion was, how do you go about doing it? Autumn gave us an example from DeKalb County, Georgia, where they set up a sort of a revolving loan program, which is a typical. Another approach could be some sort of a credit enhancement program like the Capital Access Program that's available through the state, or a loan guarantee program. That's another option which would be there. Part of the discussion was what is the capacity of the EDA and the staff to administer a financing program of that nature. And currently there isn't the capacity, and typically, particularly if you're going into a revolving loan fund, it does require some special expertise to manage something of that nature. So the thought was that we needed to reach out to a partner, or somebody to partner with related to putting together a proposal for financing. And that partner could be a private financial institution, but our thought was initially we probably should look to a CDFI, which is a Community Development Finance Institution. And currently, Virginia Community Capital and LISC are two that operate in the area, and LISC is wanting to have a larger presence and indicated, I think, that they're going to manage a revolving loan fund in Virginia Beach, so they're beginning to get into that. So our thought was next steps would be to set up a meeting with both of them to see what their interest and ability would be to partner with us to try to put together a proposal for consideration. And Anthony, I know that you have a particular interest in this area, and welcome to have your thoughts and ideas as we go forward.
But I just think partnerships cost money that could take away from the capital that we have available to loan these small businesses. And we're looking at really like micro businesses, not small businesses, because by definition, small businesses have a certain amount of capital that they have to fall under to be considered a small business. So my thought is mainly for like micro businesses that are actually being considered for subcontracting positions by these major contractors, but need a start funding boost, that we could provide them with the funding boost in similar fashion that we provide grants to these other companies, but with the expectation that we will get this money back instead of like a grant where we just give it away to them.
What is your thoughts about how would you define a micro business in that context?
By the amount of money that the business earns, by the amount of employees. There's a federal definition for micro business that you can look up, but I don't know it verbatim, but there's a definition for a micro business as opposed to just a small business.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, just to jump in, a micro business definition might be like 10 employees or less, 5 employees or less, whereas a small business technically, depending on your industry.
It's up to 250.
Yeah.
But in my mind, in this context, small business is more what you were talking about.
It is. Yeah, because the definition of small business in the Commonwealth is, I think it's up to 500.
Yeah.
500 employees. Yeah.
And micro business is less than 10 employees.
Yes, micro is more like, I think the target that we would want to grow and establish versus to get involved in the small business definition. That's
Well, I'm all for bringing them in to hear what they have to say, but in the end, we know that bringing a partner on costs money. We have to pay those partners, and that takes away from money that we could actually be giving these businesses to help support. If it's a solution that we could come up with as a committee and some kind of internal policies that we could like get off our butt and work on and not rely on outside sources to provide us all the time, then I think we could benefit more from it.
My response to that is those services that your partners provide, you would have to pay for out of our kitty as well.
Right.
So, underwriting of loans, doing legal work in terms of legal documents, closing, loan servicing, all of those elements are cost elements that need to be there, whether we provide them or whether someone else provides them.
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's a lot of expertise that we wouldn't have, that we definitely would have to go outside for. I mean, you start talking about money and people repayment and all of that stuff, it's not like a grant. It's not as.
Yeah, and I would be a little concerned with one, the staff capacity and staff expertise in doing that element of work. Because even though you're not talking about a lot of money, but you are talking about money, and bringing in another partner or another with somebody with the expertise may benefit us in case any of the transfer of money goes sideways. You want to have somebody be able to tell the public we did our due diligence. And so you have to be very, very careful with that. So I think you can probably negotiate very effectively. Maybe we set up some sort of criteria, attach it to the amount of the money so that it's cost effective. But I wouldn't want to put Brian on the spot and having to okay this stuff and monitor it.
And you have to account for it.
Sorry?
You have to account for it. If you're
Yes.
giving a loan, it's
Yes.
gonna be more involved because you're gonna have to put, like, if they don't, you're gonna have to add an amendment.
Yeah.
Like if they don't pay, what they do. So you have to,
Yeah, if
it's
they
more
don't pay,
accounting stuff, yeah. So,
I think it'd be a conversation too to have with Jay Grant. They're developing a CDFI. I think that having a partnering list to be able to do community development loans and things of that nature. That can be a program that is sponsored by or promoted by us, but not run through us. So I think it's just too much liability.
Yeah,
Too much.
yeah.
Who is Jay Grant?
The executive director, Lisk.
Let's,
Yeah.
I would just pipe in and say, in addition to LISC, which again, all above LISC, above J, Bridging Virginia is one.
Bridging,
Bridging Virginia is one more emerging CDFI that formed with the Metropolitan Business League. And I've talked to Leah Freemel, she's their CEO. This is something that City of Virginia Beach talked with them as well as LISC. So she could be another source to do that compliance side. Because yeah, I hear you, like, you want to keep all the money for the businesses, but the compliance piece will eat you alive if you don't.
Or you bring them all in and see who could give us the best deal. You could consider hiring an additional person to do
I
the
follow
additional
what you're
task,
saying.
probably at a better rate than we could do a partnership. So it's just something to consider.
Jolie, if you could assist in making an
I-
introduction to
Yeah,
Bridging.
bring everybody in. Who can give us the best deal?
Yes, please.
Have you all done a program like this before? It's happened. Not, okay.
you got it. Other best cases?
No, but I
Thank
intend
you.
to look into it, but I wanted to start here and see if there was some background.
Yeah, no, this is,
So my initial, when I initially thought about it, talked about it, is because knowing somebody that needed money to participate in a contract that didn't have the funding, it had to end up going to an angel investor, type of an angel investor, to give them the money. So they couldn't get traditional bank funding, they couldn't get additional credit in the time that they needed. So the only thing that helped them secure that contract was getting angel funding from an outside source that helped them provide the contract, and then we were able to pay the angel investor back and make a good profit for themselves too. So it's just another way to help small businesses that are being considered but can't jump in the arena because they're lacking something.
yeah, I mean, because we had this conversation in some earlier meetings, that one of the main hurdles for small businesses is access to capital, because, you know, you're not gonna be able to walk into a bank and get that kind of upfront financing, and it might, and I think the strategy we talked about is if you link that access to capital and make it available to the targeted industries we want to grow based on the disparity study, over time, we will take advantage of the disparity study and fortify and strengthen the economic base of the city of Portsmouth.
Okay.
I previously worked with CDFI that run similar programs, so I can give you some references, to people to reach out to see how they run the program.
Excuse me, I don't want to abuse the privilege of sitting here, but I would also say it's important as loan funds are for small businesses to access that are into earliest stage to seek more traditional financing. It's all of the pieces that go with it. Are their books in order? Do they have a business plan, a marketing plan, like all the operations side of the business? That I think trips businesses up more than simply the stage that they're in. It's that they don't have the supporting materials and management to support a loan. And that's where partners like the SBDC and other groups that you work with, I think, are providing the real value, because it's more than just money. You can get the loan, but if you're not adequately prepared to use the loan, that's as big as of a problem as not having the money in the first place.
Yeah, these programs are most effective when they're tied in with TA. And when that CDFI has the TA component, you see the businesses be more successful with returning the funds.
Okay. Chairman, we are in need of a closed meeting, and I do believe there's a okay. Motion that's
I move to go in closed
There
meeting
are
pursuant
reading
to
what's
code
going.
section 2.2-3711 A dot 3 for the purposes of discussing acquisition of or disposition of real property, where discussion in an open meeting would be adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding strategic acquisitions and 219 Pavilion Drive. B, pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.23711, A.8, for the purposes of consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically regarding Zero Harbor Center Court in Newport, and C, pursuant to Code Section 2.23711A.6, for the purposes of discussion considering the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made publicly initially, the financial interest of the governing unit would be adversely affected, specifically regarding the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. That's a whole lot.
That is a whole lot.
I second all of that.
Thank you both. I'll read the roll. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
And Mr. James.
Yes.
Chair, the item is adopted by a vote of 5-0. We are now in a closed.
I hereby move that each commissioner certify that the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which closed meeting was convened, heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting just concluded.
The roll. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
And is approved by a vote of 5-0. We are now back in an open meeting. Our next item is items submitted by Commissioner.
We talked last time that at the end of each quarter, we would make a small contribution to a 501c. And then I asked anyone if they were interested in that, if they bring recommendations.
I do have a recommendation.
I have one as well. So.
Okay. My recommendation is, the Portsmouth Community Outreach Coalition. It's a nonprofit youth ministry located in Portsmouth, and it's ran by Darlene Sparks Washington.
And mine is the Ida Barber Early Learning Center, historic institution in Portsmouth, founded in 1910 by Ida B. Barber to support children of working mothers and provide care for homeless and neglected children. It's recognized as one of Virginia's oldest daycare establishments, documented in the United States Library of Congress. And during the COVID-19 challenges, they have been struggling and trying to get financial resources to continue to provide affordable daycare.
I actually attended that place when my mother was a single mother. We lived in Ida Barber, so I'm all in support for that.
So vote.
Make the motion.
I make the motion to support the Ida Barber.
Second. That's $1,400 we'll give you.
That would be, I think it's a $1,600 per quarter, or $400 a month on billboard rent, so that would be $1,600.
Okay.
Did you guys outline what the purpose and intent of it would be so that we can have it properly aligned? I mean, I think these are clearly nonprofits, but as you move towards some, you may broaden your scope and you'll need to
Yeah,
justify
we
it.
just said they had to be a
Close.
501c.
Okay,
We tried to target smaller organizations that
Okay.
didn't get a lot of this.
okay. I think that's perfectly said. There you go. That's it. Okay. Thank you.
You know, really have two attorneys. You know, one I can do.
I tried to be good. I did. I'm sorry.
Legal.
Yeah. gang up on
I
us.
know, we try not to do that. So.
And
Yeah,
before,
right.
we move forward, I do need to correct myself. That would actually be $1,200. Yeah, that's fine. I apologize. And I will read the roll. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. James.
Yes.
The item is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Talk about the tour.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on to the last agenda item, which is report backs. I'm gonna keep this very, very short and quick here. Just a couple of announcements. The Portsmouth Invitational Tournament ends on Wednesday, April 17th, and run through Saturday, April 20th at Churchland High School. The Economic Development Department has sponsored the event this year as we have in years past, and you have some tickets available. As a result, if anybody'd like to attend, I think we've already had a few takers of those, but please let Karen know by Wednesday if you have any interest in attending. I think we are able to provide 2 ticket packs per commissioner, and those are for games for each day of the event. Some great basketball and a great venue as well. So we're able to do that. And then coming up on May 3rd, please mark your calendars. The State of the City event will be held on Friday, May 3rd at noon. And that's going to be at Rivers Casino Portsmouth again. We do have a table reserved for the EDA. So if you would please let Karen know your ability to attend. I believe seating starts at around 11 o'clock, but the actual event will start in generally lasts for about 2 hours.
What was the date again?
It's Friday, May 3rd. And we'll send a reminder on both of these items out to you as well. So please just let us know if you're willing to attend. We will also likely have some businesses based in Portsmouth that will invite to join us that are. Chairman, that is all I had for you.
Any other items? That concludes our meeting.